This is the Weather Lounge here at WeatherWorks.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome back to another round here in the Weather Lounge. I'm your host, meteorologist Brad Miller, and thank you very much for visiting our little corner of the podcast world. And joining me, as always, is my fantastic co-host, WeatherWorks meteorologist Mike Maholick. Hey there, Mike, and it's great to have you here again in the Weather Lounge.
Thanks a lot, Brad. Fantastic.
How do you like that?
I like you calling me fantastic. I really appreciate
Marvelous,
that one.
Fabulous. What else do you want to hear?
I don't know. any adjective works good. At least the good ones.
Yeah, well, today we've got a kind of a fun topic to talk about.
Yeah, I mean this topic is weather in the movies. So it's not only just debunking weather that was incorrectly portrayed, but it might be just kind of weathers in fun movies that I know Brad has a few listed.
I'm sure listeners are already their brains are thinking about a couple of good ones. I mean, I'm sure we're gonna hit some common ones, but we can also we'll talk about some other ones as well.
No, absolutely. And you know what, for Brad, for this episode, I think we need another podcast guest. What do you think?
Yeah. We've been trying to work our other WeatherWorks meteorologist podcaster in here with us, and this is the perfect chance. And I just want to introduce. And he's in our videos all the time. He's one of our lead meteorologists for Northern New Jersey, and he is the one and the only Michael Priante.
Oh,
Mike.
Well, hello there, guys.
Welcome to the Weather Lounge. Hey,
Nice.
and by the way, one other thing I want to tell everyone what you do is you are a producer guru here at WeatherWorks.
I've been basically all the episodes before this one. I'm going to be editing this episode, obviously, but the ones before this I have. So if there's any negative comments about maybe the audio is not good, you could blame me for that. But we're still getting this all off the ground here. But I've made all the edits to the podcast, and I've been kind of the one who's gotten off, I guess, into the podcast world.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, other than being a guru, I guess, Brad, of podcasting, which honestly, I'm not.
But what you do with Premiere out here and
Right,
all of our stuff, and you got us on all the podcast platforms, and we definitely appreciate everything you do on the podcast for us.
Listen, without Mike, I don't think we'd have any podcasts out there right now, because he certainly set everything up for us. I mean, Brad and I are just here talking. I mean, he's the guy who goes through all the magic.
Yeah, I know.
But this is the meat of the podcast, guys. You guys are talking back and forth.
Yeah, I know.
Like, this is what makes a podcast. I'm just the one who makes sure that it gets together and it all sounds nice.
But we thought for this topic, though, it would be great to have the three of us talking about it. But before we get to that, Mike, tell us just a little bit about yourself, how long you've been here at WeatherWorks. And again, you're one of the lead forecasters from North Jersey, very busy, busy forecast, both summer and winter.
Right. So, I started back here not really long, 2016, although I guess that's 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a while ago. But I started back here in 2016. I graduated Penn State in 2016, so actually right after college.
Mike, one thing we want to tell you, and I'm sure Mike Maholick will also vouch for this, life goes fast after college.
Life goes fast. Wasn't that from the movie? There's a quote, right? Life goes
maybe
fast. Sometimes you...
Yeah.
Yeah, just for reference, I graduated Penn State in 2003.
I'm way before that. I was in the 90s.
You don't want to know how old I was in 2003.
We'll just skip that part.
Okay. But anyway, no, I started here in 2016, and right off of college, and I've been working my way up the ranks, and now I'm a lead meteorologist. I did forecasts for Northern New Jersey, and now in the winter I'll be in Southern New Jersey. So still in the state, but it's definitely a step up from when I started working on overnights. That's for sure.
But now working into certified snowfall totals for Connecticut and Rhode Island.
Ooh, yes, CSDs. Always fun.
That used to be my neck of the woods for
Really?
certified snowfall totals. So,
yeah. How is it?
It's busy.
Busy.
Busy? Okay.
Hey, I got I got Vermont and New Hampshire. So
those are always busy.
I got one a day usually, but
All right.
that's definitely getting into winter. That's for sure. Here in a few weeks, that's definitely will be shifting gears here at WeatherWorks. But other than that, we're just happy to have everyone here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're getting a little off topic, so hey, let's bring it back to weather in the movies. So, guys, I think it's a good time to take a break. And after this short little break, we'll have weather in the movies in our podcast.
Have you ever wanted to know exactly how much snow or ice fell in your backyard? Or how much snow you just plowed from that 2-acre parking lot? How about getting documentation that explains why you applied several applications of salt to a busy apartment complex? When it comes to snow and ice verification, it can be a headache trying to find accurate totals for the busy winter season. Certified Snowfall Totals from WeatherWorks provides a stress-free way to get reliable information for the exact location you need. It's your complete winter weather verification platform. For more information or to try a demo, visit CertifiedSnowfallTotals.com or call us at 908-850-8600. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Weather Lounge. And once again, our topic today is weather in movies. And basically what we're going to do is just pick a movie, myself, Mike, and Mike. But we'll go through a couple of movies and just discuss the different weather moments. And like Mike even said before, Mike Maholick, about debunking some things. And again, it's just going to be kind of a fun podcast here. And what we're going to do now is go right to Mike Priante. And he is going to, I guess, give us our first nomination here for your weather movie, Mike.
Well, I think if there's any weather movie, and I'm sure people know when they hear this name, The Day After Tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
Have you guys watched it? I'm sure you guys have seen it, right?
How can you not?
I mean, yeah. I honestly, I haven't seen the whole movie. So, I've seen bits and pieces, but not the whole thing.
At least you saw some of it. But Brad, I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it. I mean, there's just a lot of different weather happening. Whether or not it could ever happen, I don't know the truth behind it.
I'm going to start off with I guess the basic truth of the matter. And it's the idea of the beginning of the movie, and this is a spoiler alert for anybody who's not seen this movie.
If you haven't seen this movie,
go ahead, or don't listen to this podcast. But basically, the idea is that the ice caps are melting,
right,
and it's changing the currents, the global the gyres in the ocean, changing the temperature,
the Gulf Stream and things like that, right?
And I mean, a lot of that is sort of true.
Yeah, in actuality, that is not a false thing. Like the ocean currents and the moving around of the salinity and stuff in the ocean, that is an actual circulation. I think it's called the thermohaline.
Thermohaline, that's exactly it. Yes.
But in the movie,
well, it's the Hollywood effect. Basically, they take that and they ramp it up to 9 on the scale. And what happens is basically they have I believe it's I'm blanking on who the main character was. It's he was.
Oh yeah, he really watched the movie.
I always have a problem with naming actors for movies if I haven't seen the movie in a while, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen it in a while, but I've seen it multiple times. So
That's okay.
But anyway, the main character is a scientist, a meteorologist actually, at NOAA, and he's presenting his findings to the board about how the ice caps are melting because he was on an expedition in the Arctic, and there was a lot of I guess Arctic melting going on, and he noticed all this with they take core samples, which is actually true too. I think they go in the Arctic and they do core samples to test, how much the Earth has been warming and how things are changing. This is all climate related, but
actually, not to interrupt you, but core samples are awesome because they are almost like rings on a tree, and you can tell basically a lot of what's happened in the Earth's history by taking core samples out of glaciers in Greenland. I had a professor at Penn State that was huge into climate change.
Really? Oh, who is it? Maybe I know.
Allie was his last name.
Does not ring a bell. Not sure.
Well, regardless, he talked about all that, how they can core sample and do climate change and see how the Earth's history from it. So that's really cool. But sorry to interrupt you.
No,
by the way, Mike, Jake Gyllenhaal is the actor you're thinking of.
Well, no, that's the son. I'm thinking of the father. And man, he's
Dennis Quaid.
Dennis Quaid. Yes,
there you go.
That's it. Dennis Quaid. He
Thank
plays
you, Google.
the meteorologist. Look at that. Google search saved the day. Thank you, Brad. But anyway, Dennis Quaid's character basically presents his findings and he says that this is going to be, apocalyptic. The weather is going to change. It's going to create a whole chaos. And of course, the government, what do? They blow them off. They say, yeah, whatever. It's not your findings are not what we're thinking here. So they kind of shove them off the corner.
Meanwhile, you got 4 hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean all lined up. I just remember seeing all the graphics and the satellite presentation that they always had.
And it's like, we got to let our listeners know.
And these weren't like regular hurricanes. I mean, if there's such a thing. But these were like mega hurricanes.
And I'm sure, if you haven't listened to the previous podcast, please go ahead. We talk about tropical systems.
Sure.
But this is no way near realistic in terms of how tropical systems, hurricanes, cyclones develop. I mean, you basically had sort of storms developing over Africa, over North America, and just kind of growing over land.
I think that towards the middle and the end of the movie, when chaos was really happening, the storms got so strong that the upper atmosphere, the cold part of the upper atmosphere, was able to filter all the way down to the surface. And of course, even in the summertime, it's below freezing above 18,000, 19,000 feet.
Now,
so that kind of air can get all the way down to the surface.
That's actually good point, Brad, that I was going to mention about. And we talked about what's the science behind it that's actually true with the whole climate, changing. But the second part, I guess most of the movie that's fake. Number one is what you mentioned, is that they show all this cold air funneling down through the eye of the storm, and you could see in New York City in one scene where everything flash freezes.
It just flash freezes, right?
This is after a wall of water, sea level rise.
The New York Harbor just engulfs entire Manhattan. Right.
And I mean, that's the science between that is the sea level is rising because when the polar ice caps melt, more water's in the ocean. But they basically they turn up to 9. And it's unrealistic, like a tsunami in New York City.
Yeah, I think there was a scene where the Statue of Liberty had the water up by her crown almost.
Right.
Yeah.
And what was it? Just a tsunami wave coming in?
It was literally a tsunami wave. And of course, actually, this is not a weather, faux pas, but this is a movie faux pas. Geography faux pas. They had the wave coming from New Jersey. I
never noticed that.
The Hudson River, they have the wave coming from the west. And it's well, what happened to New Jersey? They should have had it coming from the south, from the tip of Manhattan, but they didn't. They had the wave coming in from the west to the east.
So that's
a movie mistake there, not a weather mistake, but a geography mistake on their
Now,
part.
were they trying to go with storm surge? Is that what they were saying?
They were trying to tie in, how the ice caps would cause a elevated sea level rise, but they
all at once, huh?
They sort of put that on steroids in a way, and it's like a tsunami. But really, the whole point what Brad was making with the cold air funneling in, basically the cold air, it flash freezed everything.
Yeah.
You don't see that happening. I mean, can a flash freeze happen? That is truth. There is a flash freeze in a way, but not to the extent that would happen.
No,
everything.
The temperature went down to 0.
It went down way below.
Yeah,
it went down to negative 50 degrees.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was blowing out windows or something and freezing the Empire State Building and.
One interesting thing, and I actually did some research here. Apparently, so the freezing point they say in the movie of fuel is a negative 150 degrees Fahrenheit, which is actually negative 80 degrees Fahrenheit. But nonetheless, they show fuel lines freezing, people basically turning to ice immediately. It's it's as if you shot someone into space. Now that can happen in space because space is there's no atmosphere. It's very, very cold. But for that to happen, for all the cold air to come in, from the top of Earth down into, the bottom, science says that's not true because you have warm air, basically cold air coming down and it warms. I mean, we know this from meteorology, down sloping winds, the warm air coming down from
plus you're compressing it too, so that heats up the air as
Exactly. So just, the science there was not, it was just all Hollywood to make it seem like it was more apocalyptic than what it should have been.
Yeah, Day After Tomorrow for sure is a weather movie.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to Mike Maholick and let's see what your weather movie of choice number 1 is.
Well, I have to bring it back to 1996, so I don't know how old Mike was at that point.
I was just a little toddler there.
But
barely about to walk.
We have to go. We have to go with Twister.
Oh yeah.
Who was in there? Helen Hunt.
Yeah.
But anyway, Twister. It was about storm chasers and chasing tornadic supercells around the Great Plains. And, premise of the movie was correct. There are people that chase tornadoes and things like that to learn more about them. It's just that there's a lot of parts that were actually quite false if you're watching the movie as a meteorologist and you're trying to put the science to it a little
Now,
bit.
at the same time, though, they were trying to deploy that.
Yes.
That.
Yeah, I think they called it.
Toto?
Was it
Dorothy.
I think
Dorothy,
Toto's the real one, right?
Right. Toto
Yes.
is the real one.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, they have a. It was
Oh.
actually a true thing that they were trying to do. Scientists were trying to deploy a probe for a tornado to hit. And I think it was like the Vortex mission. I think they were calling that.
It's funny. Oh, sorry, not to interrupt you, but it's funny you mentioned that because I'm remembering now. When I went to Oklahoma City for an AMS conference, and I went to the Storm Lab basically in Oklahoma City, and they actually have the prop from the movie next to the actual real. I think it was Toto. So it was cool, and it says Dorothy 2 or 3 on it. So it was pretty cool that that's what it was based off of. So
Yeah. So they're trying to deploy this probe in front of a tornado, and they're trying to get as close as possible. Some of the scenes are just not quite going to be reality when it comes to tornadoes. Like one that kind of threw me was there's a part where they encounter, I think it was 2 water spouts. And you know how water spouts are, Brad. I mean, they're usually very weak. They may be like an EF0. Maybe like an
and it's
EF1.
usually just water. There's no really debris to get hurt of. I mean, they can
Right.
topple over boats and things, but
Plus, they're in the plains, so I don't know where they're finding. Like, I mean, water spout. I mean, I guess technically it would be a water spout over a lake or
but
a
it'd be
river, I
so
suppose.
brief and weak. Yeah.
But typically, when you're talking water spouts, you're talking about the coastal United States, something like that, where you find them. But either way, they're typically very weak, and cows are getting picked up by this water spout and throwing it around. And the water spout is just a thin ribbon of a tornado, and these cows are flying well outside of those winds. And plus, the cow is flying, getting lifted up right in front of the guy's truck. And the truck wasn't affected.
Right. And mind you, a cow weighs what, 400 or 500 pounds at least?
Right. So the
Right.
truck's at least going to be rocking
Rocking a
or
little
getting
bit,
or
right.
getting pushed a little around.
And now, what's up with this is something that I've seen in movies about like tornadoes. What's up with cows, man? Like they always show cows flying around in like the mid. I guess there's a lot of cows in the Midwest, so it makes sense. But
Yeah.
I've always seen like animals being flung, like poor animals, man.
It's probably like you said, the plains, and they're
Yeah.
out in the open, and yeah. Well, there are some examples of tornadoes picking up smaller animals. I mean,
Sure.
like even frogs and things like that. But yeah,
Yeah,
the
I
cow
mean-
thing is overused, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's another scene where, again, the truck doesn't get affected, but a tanker truck carrying gas was actually lifted up right in front of their truck. But the pickup truck was fine. The tanker truck, though, got lifted up into the tornado.
I remember they were actually were they in a field, or they were like they had to back up quickly because it was
Yeah.
coming
Yeah.
after them.
Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous.
Now-
So there's a few instances where that was silly.
Yeah, there's a ride. I don't know if it's still there at Universal Studios down in Orlando. It's not in Disney World. It's in Universal Studios,
Might
which
be,
is
I'm
out.
not sure.
It used. I've been to it. I don't know if it's still there. It was called Twister, and
Yeah.
basically they took the bad storm scene, and they had the fuel truck, and of course the big tornado comes in, and they just redo the whole, and you feel the wind hit you and things like that. I mean, it's pretty well done. I just don't know if it's still there, but I remember the Twister ride at Universal Studios.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot more faux pas in that movie than you think about. They talked about, we're punching the core, but it wasn't even heavy rain. It wasn't even hail. If you're punching the core of a supercell, you're getting large hail impacting, your car. You're getting very heavy rains, and it was nothing like that. So that was false
And
too.
you see on Twitter a lot of like these actual storm chasers that go through the core.
Yeah,
Man,
it's
like,
not good.
It's like blinding rain. They're getting pelted. Sometimes
Well, a good
with
storm
hail.
chaser too knows where to be when you're trying to get the best view of.
Yeah, these were
of-
probably the worst storm chasers in the world in this movie, let me tell you. But I think the part of the movie that threw me the most was it was a scene at the end. I think it was like an EF5 tornado. and they were getting chased by the EF5 tornado, and they couldn't find shelter. They went into like a small barn, and they found some pipe that was like goes into the ground. I don't know, 30 feet or whatever they said. So they strapped themselves to the pipe. The tornado goes right over them. So rips the building to shreds. They're getting like pulled up into the tornado, held on by the strap. And I'm thinking, so you're telling me that these two people survived going through the wall of a tornado, which is likely filled with 2x4s, trees,
nails, who
cars.
knows what.
I mean, at that point, you're not surviving. I'm sorry. A person will not. I mean, not that it wouldn't be impossible,
Right.
but
highly unlikely.
So it was a little bit fictitious, and then they survived that somehow. So
Yeah, I remember seeing that scene. It's almost kind of like, you see the part where like they're hugging each other and they're like looking up, and they, of course, I don't know if this is next on your list, but they look up and they see, kind of like the eye of the tornado, and they can see blue skies and it's clear as day. And
Yeah, that doesn't make
and
sense.
this, beautiful, like it's all quiet and calm.
Yeah, it's not a
It's like-
hurricane.
no, they're trying to make it like a hurricane.
Right.
yeah, not to ruin everybody's movie out there. Look, you still enjoy the movie,
Right. It's a good movie. It's just
but
Well, again, this is 24 years ago. So I mean, if you haven't seen Twister by now, maybe you may want to see Twister now just
Right.
because of that.
it's possible. But I mean, there's certainly a lot of faux pas in that movie when it comes to weather and actual science. But Brad, I think we talked enough about our two movies. What do you have to offer here?
Well, I got the golfer in me, and this may actually give away the movie a little bit, but it was. I mean, I was barely alive when it came out, but of course, it gained so much attention, and it was such a popular movie. Caddyshack.
I love Caddyshack.
You can't talk about Caddyshack and not bring up, of course, the pastor, or no, the that wasn't a minister. What
Yeah,
was
well,
he?
I don't know if it was a judge or no, it wasn't Judge Smales. That was the main character of Bushwood Country Club.
Bushwood Country Club. But Caddyshack, has a lot of weather phenomena around it. Of course, again, we were just talking about the lightning scene, and I don't think the heavy stuff's going to come now for quite some time. So of course
Bill Murray was fantastic.
yeah, the church guy goes out and he plays the best 9 holes of his life, and meanwhile the storm's just starting to come in. There's lightning all around, and he thinks he can get in another 9 because he can go for the course record. And sure enough, he goes back out there with Bill Murray as his caddy, who is actually the groundskeeper of the course. Yeah. And the lightning by number 18 is just all around them. It's pouring down rain, and he misses the last putt for a course record, apparently. And of course, he puts his putter up in the air and screams at God and says, "Rat farts." And he gets struck by lightning, and that's all you hear about him until the next day. And I mean, it was just a classic part of the movie that no one will ever forget if you're a Caddyshack fan.
Now, one thing I want to mention, you mentioned the rain part. This is really for any movie too, but like, have you noticed that when movies try to portray like pouring rain, it's almost like the worst thing.
It's like
you've
a
ever
wall
seen.
of rain.
It's like a wall of rain. I mean, they try, but like, usually like rain, it's not like you can almost see the rain. It's kind of like, it's like someone's like basically like dumping a bucket of water over someone's head. You can see it, but rain you really won't see, as much to the naked eye. But I just noticed that it's so comical to see like pouring rain like in sheets.
No, well, and the day after that whole scene, it was beautiful weather. It was quiet, and of course the pastor or whatever he is, the church guy, he's all like, there is no God now, and because he was in another scene later in the movie, but because of what happened, it was just ridiculous that he could get struck by lightning like that.
Well, hey, maybe Bushwood could have used our lightning service to help out with that.
Now, on the other side of things, this is a true story. There's a biography of how Caddyshack was filmed. It's about a 2-hour. If you ever get a chance to see it, I don't know where. It's something like TNT or TBS or something. You can catch it once in a while, or just maybe Google it and find out. But it's the filming of Caddyshack, and it's a 2-hour long biography basically. They have all the actors and actresses, but Bushwood Country Club was actually called Rolling Hills Country Club. That's the actual course.
Oh, I didn't know that.
In Florida, yeah. And I guess because they knew they were going to blow up the course and pretty much ruin it, there weren't too many courses that wanted to give up a golf course in the middle of late summer, early fall when they shot it. And so the members at Rolling Hills Country Club says, yeah, come on up and you can film your movie. And at the same time, Hurricane David was actually bearing down on Florida. And if you watch the biography and the whole thing about Caddyshack, it was like a 3-day storm, and it basically flooded out the course, and they had to hunker down for a couple of days because Hurricane David came ashore in Central Florida right when they were filming this in 1979. So it probably October of 1979, I think it was September 1979, because the movie came out in 1980. So a real live actual weather phenomena occurred while they were shooting that movie. So another thing you can just look up for Caddyshack.
Now, do you think if there was a hurricane in the movie, they would be able to go through the course, just like the scene? I mean, it would be a whole different.
Yeah, it would be.
It'd be a whole different, scene there if you had a hurricane just flooded green.
But yeah, I mean, you can't deny a weather part there of Caddyshack. It's definitely a weather movie that we debunk and things like that.
All right, well, that's the first round of movies, guys, we just talked about, and I'm glad we all had different ones, and we'll have a couple more movies to talk about, but right now we're going to take a quick break, and after that, we'll get into the second half of our podcast, and we'll learn about some other movies that were interesting with the weather.
You're listening to The Weather Lounge here at WeatherWorks.
Hello and welcome back to the second part of our movies and weather podcast here in the Weather Lounge. And like we did in the first round, Mike Priante, we're going to go back to you, and we're each going to do one more movie. Okay. So what is your number 2 weather and movie choice?
So, okay, we'll start off with a movie that I'm sure a lot of people have probably heard of. It's Anchorman.
Oh, yeah.
You don't think of weather immediately with Anchorman.
Yeah, I don't think of weather at
right
now.
But so I'm not really going to go too much into like that because there's not a lot to talk about. But I will say best character is Brick Tamland. He's the meteorologist in the movie. And I think it's funny because they make him out to be stupid, and I know there's the whole like weathermen are always wrong and everything. And so I think they were trying to portray that and make him kind of like the idiot of the Anchorman.
Where are you going with this, Mike? Because it doesn't seem good for us.
No. What I'm trying to portray here is because on the back end, if you noticed the map that Brick, the meteorologist, is showing, always and this is in every movie that you see weather involved with a meteorologist, someone on TV. The maps are always wrong.
Yeah,
they always draw the surface maps wrong. They have fronts and low pressure systems.
The cold front's always going the wrong way.
Cold front, in this movie, they had a warm front act like a cold front. It's I understand they're not doing their history and their research, but it's more of a pet peeve than a faux pas. It really annoys me. So I love the movie though. Don't get me wrong. So I just wanted to bring that up.
It's just enough to annoy meteorologists like us that
exactly.
that weather. And I've seen that in other movies.
Exactly,
you're right.
Exactly.
There's always something wrong with the surface map and what they're talking about.
Exactly.
No, that's not right.
Yeah, that's true. But again, I'm mostly thinking about Will Ferrell in that movie. And, all his crazy.
No, but Brick Tamland was good. I love Lamp.
I love Lamp. That's quote.
that was quoted several times. I know that.
Yes.
So, but I guess
Mike, you're up next. Mike Maholick's up next.
Yeah. Well, this one isn't a movie, but and it's not even that big of a deal. But it's just something I kind of noticed as an aside when I was watching Game of Thrones. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Game of Thrones. But there's an area they call North of the Wall that's always cold. Okay. In this whole fantasy kingdom thing that's going on. Very cold. It's like ice.
So Canada?
Exactly. It's like, you're in the Arctic or something like that. So a lot of times these actors are standing around and they're not wearing like any form of hood or hat, right? Except for the wildlings. They were smart because they lived there. They had hoods. But then like sometimes these actors would be flying on dragons. Now, I know we're fantasy here, but still. Flying on dragons. It's 20 degrees outside. Okay. And, you're flying on a dragon at what? How fast does a dragon go?
I don't know, 40, 50 miles an hour. Oh, yeah, there goes one right now, Mike.
I look like a dragon expert.
I don't know. Come on, guys. Well, either way, I'm thinking to myself, they have no hood, nothing on. Like, they're going to get frostbite in like less than 5 minutes in this situation. And it was kind of just funny to me just thinking of that and being like, well, it looks good with the hair flowing and everything else as they're riding a dragon.
But they're tough people, though. Don't forget, Mike.
Well, I don't care how tough you are. Your
I think we're
skin's
getting
still
off
going to
topic
freeze.
here. This isn't the dragon podcast. This is a weather podcast. So,
all right. Well, enough about my dragons then. Brad, what do you got for
All
us?
right, my second one. It's another Bill Murray movie, and it's actually a better, I guess, it's a better way that you can see how a meteorologist on TV works, and that, of course, is Groundhog Day. Now, if you've never been in a TV studio, which a lot of folks probably haven't been, and again, this actually gets close to home for me because I was on TV for a long time doing weather. But if you want to see how chroma key works and how a meteorologist in the studio does the weather, watch the beginning of Groundhog Day. Bill Murray is the meteorologist, and he's at the wall, as it's called, and he's doing his forecast. But you see the big green blank wall behind him, which is the chroma key, and that's how they project the image on top of you, and that's how he does the actual weather on television. And he has a monitor to the left and right of him and also in front of him where the camera's at. So that's why you can't wear like a green tie, and they pick like these weird colors. But, of course, Groundhog Day is a great movie also. It's about, a guy that continues to relive Groundhog Day every day because he's such a nasty person in real life, and he doesn't care about anyone else. So I guess the main theme of the movie is until he changes himself is when he can finally advance to the next day. So of course he goes back and forth to Groundhog Day every single day. It's the same. Kills himself. He steals things because he knows the next day is just going to be another repeat.
Doesn't he take the groundhog?
He takes the ground. Don't drive angry.
In one scene,
Yeah, don't drive angry. That's what the line is there when he's driving the truck off the cliff. But I just think of when you think of Groundhog Day as a meteorologist, you think of Bill Murray and doing that the beginning scene, and the whole time he's this prima donna meteorologist that will do this for me and do this for me, and he gets driven around, of course, which that's not true anymore.
It's a lot how you acted down in South Carolina, right?
No, I was not the chief.
I don't know. I heard stories.
No.
If the chief meteorologist from Charleston, right, is down there listening to this podcast, please drop us a line over
Bill,
on
Bill Walsh
on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or
no, it wasn't like that.
Weather Lounge at weatherworksinc.com.
We enjoyed it. No, in fact, actually a little note about Bill Murray. He lives in Charleston, actually Sullivan's Island, which is, I guess you can call it Barrier Island in Charleston. But I've met him several times. He's a great guy. He's part owner of the River Dogs down there, which is the Yankees farm team. And, he's been to our station when I was there a lot too. So he's a well-known, actually, if we're going to talk about him real quick, there was a rehearsal dinner somewhere at one of the restaurants in Charleston on a Friday night, and Bill Murray was happening to have dinner there as well. And I guess he just popped in to say hi and just was being he's very forward. He's very open. He's not like one of these other Hollywood actors that they're all standoffish, but Bill Murray is actually a really great guy. So he popped in, and all the people, they're like, oh, Bill, nice to meet you. And he went in and talked to everyone. And of course, they said, well, if you want to come to our wedding tomorrow, you're more than welcome to. And sure enough, he shows up in a full tux, gift and all, and he came to the wedding. What a nice guy. You just say that and you're like, he's not going to show up. But sure enough, he was there at the church for the wedding.
Shout out to Bill Murray.
Everybody. Yeah. I mean, he's a great guy.
And if Bill Murray's watching the podcast,
listening to the podcast, he doesn't remember probably me. I've met him a few times, but he wouldn't.
We'll gladly have Bill Murray on.
But but that was a great movie, Groundhog Day. I still got to think about that as one of my favorites when it comes to meteorology. All right, so here's what we're gonna do, fellas. We're gonna do one quick honorable mention. I already got mine, and
quick lightning round.
A quick lightning round. Maybe you say one quick thing about it, but the one I'm going to do is the one that I think we're all going to end up talking about anyway. So,
okay.
Mike Priante, one last honorable mention.
Oh, should I do this Is this the same as what you were thinking of?
Oh, okay. We could.
I
Let's
don't
just
think
all
so.
do it. We know what we're talking about.
Alrighty.
Say
Okay.
it, Mike.
All right, it's Sharknado.
Oh my God.
That movie is, I mean, besides the fact that like it was made with like probably the worst budget in the world and the CGI is god awful. I mean, it just takes meteorology and like
It
shoves it
does.
in the garbage.
It
You know?
does. It makes you mad as a meteorologist to even watch that movie. You're like, no way that can happen.
I think it's the point, Brad, where Mike, like the fact that when you watch this movie, you have to understand that meteorology does not play a factor at all.
No.
Basically, there's nothing meteorological
Well,
about.
They tried a little. Like when I say a little, I mean like 5%.
Right.
But yeah, there was one scene where they were watching the news in like a convenience store, and the person on the news was saying the tornado's F3, and by the time it gets on shore, it's gonna build into a F4 or 5.
Yeah.
But you don't know that.
Yeah,
They make
exactly.
it
You
seem
know,
like it's a hurricane.
Yeah, nobody knows what a tornado is going to be until they do the damage estimate afterwards.
Right. And
You
I
know?
mean, and then let's talk about the whole physics of like how animals can survive.
Well, we talked about that before in
know.
Mike's Twister earlier.
Oh,
Instead of
yeah.
cows, we got
We
sharks.
get sharks. And I mean, they're making it seem like, first of all, tornadoes, way up in the atmosphere. If a shark gets pulled in all the way up to the core of a mesocyclone, you think it can survive that? I don't think it can. I mean, now there are, I did hear that, like you said, small animals like frogs and
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
they have been reported to be carried miles away and still survive,
Mhm.
which is fine. But I don't see like hundreds of sharks being pulled into a tornado and being dropped onto people, and also eating them and like alive.
Let's be realistic. I mean, obviously the movie was meant to be classically bad,
Right.
and that was the whole theme.
The budget
of
was
it.
about $4.
You know,
on it.
They're like, we're gonna make the worst movie ever, and it's gonna be so bad that people are gonna like it. And it worked.
Bad movies.
Well,
they
and
well.
I think the worst thing to take out of this whole thing with Sharknado is wasn't one, there wasn't two, there wasn't three.
There was
was
several.
four.
Yeah.
I think there were
them.
4. It might have been
There were
5.
I don't remember now. I think there was 4. I think there were
Yeah,
4
I think you're right.
Sharknadoes.
I gotta say though, with that movie, it was like I was watching it and it was so bad, like I had to keep watching
That's
it.
the problem. He's like,
Like,
"Ah,
I had
can't
to see what
probably-
happens next.
That's probably why they had more than one. Like after the first and second one, you realize, okay, we're watching this because we want to see how ridiculous they can take this up. And every single time they brought the ridiculousness to another
Yeah,
factor. So
They did. Well, kudos to Sharknado and their directors and producers and actors and actresses. It's something that we can all just kind of compliment, or not compliment, I guess, comment on and
Yeah,
make fun of.
compliment.
But hey, it is what it is. But yeah, as a meteorologist, it's a little frustrating to see that movie. But that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Just as frustrating as seeing that 384-hour GFS posted on Twitter or Facebook that clobbers the Northeast with 2 feet of snow, and then the next day it's gone.
Yeah, like how about the other day? There was a ensemble run of the European model that
Yeah.
had like snow.
Yeah,
And
in the
it was
early
like-
part of October.
Yeah, it was crazy. But I was like, well, obviously that's not right. But
Yeah, but that was
Either
fun,
way.
guys. I enjoyed that very much.
no.
You guys had me on. Well, I'm always on, but I'm glad you had me.
Oh, you'll be back. Don't worry. We're
Yeah.
really back in, Mike.
I mean, absolutely. We have I'm sure there's way more movies we could have talked about here, guys. But I mean, honestly, we could probably talk all day about these movies. But I think that about wraps it up for our movies in the and weather in movies in our podcast here. And remember, this is a bi-weekly podcast, so there'll be one every 2 weeks to check out. We're on all the podcasting platforms out there, from Apple to Google to Stitcher, Pandora. Mike, am I missing any?
iHeartRadio.
Ah, right. Spotify too.
Yes,
Impressive.
make sure you
we're on
guys subscribe. Give us a like. Give us a line. We have WeatherWorks on our email, which is the Weather Lounge at weatherworksinc.com, I believe.
Yeah, just Weather Lounge.
Weather
Lounge at
Some
weatherworksinc.com.
impressive platforms for sure.
Yeah, and please just drop us a line there if there's some topic you want to hear about. We'll certainly put it into the podcast agenda there and get it on air for you guys. And as always, visit us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those places. WeatherWorks, you'll find us there. And as always, weatherworksinc.com. But guys, until the next podcast, I think that about wraps it up for this one. So thanks for listening, and please join us in another 2 weeks.